This is National Review Online. We're joined by Keith Rothfus from Pennsylvania's 4th Congressional District, a Republican running against Jason Altmire. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Keith, you're in the final week. What's your strategy to try to knock off Jason Altmire, who's running against Nancy Pelosi? It seems like every other Democratic initiative in Washington.
Well, he can try to run against Nancy, but he's been voting with Nancy almost 90% of the time. The focus for the next week is just a stand message. We have a very disciplined message about what's going on in the country. 9.5% unemployment, $13.5 trillion national debt, an out-of-control federal government that's taking over everything from our light bulbs to our health care. And that's a message that's been resonating across this district. We have small business after small business that's not hiring because of all the uncertainty that they've created out there. Altmire, notwithstanding his self-representation as some kind of moderate or independent, has been voting with Nancy Pelosi almost 90% of the time. And there's a litany of failed economic policies he's been supporting, from the $800 billion stimulus to consecutive trillion-dollar deficits, bailing out Fannie and Freddie, the car companies, cash for clunkers, $26 billion state bailout, time and again voting with Nancy Pelosi on some substantive big government, big spending agenda items.
This is your first race. Why did you choose to run for Congress?
Because of my kids. I've got 6 kids. And I looked around the field back in December, or no, it was September 2009, and kept on waiting for somebody to jump into this race. And nobody was doing it. And I'm looking at my 6 kids, ages 3 to 20. I call our kids Generation Debt because of all the debt that this generation of irresponsible spenders is dumping on them. And I said somebody has to take this guy on. He's been part of the big spending agenda. We've got to get a handle on our budget, so I jumped into the race.
Western Pennsylvania is an old steel country area, but a lot of new technology coming in here. How can a Republican win in southwestern Pennsylvania this year?
Stressing the same conservative values that these people believe in. That's where Altmire has a problem, because at heart, I think he's a big government liberal. This is a conservative district. We're skeptical of big government. We don't like tax increases. We want to be free. And so I think he has a problem there because I think his gut reaction is to vote for the big government agenda items, but they're not supported by the people. And so when you have a situation like the health care bill that comes out, where a conservative would instinctively come out hard and fast fighting against this government takeover. You know, I talk about Dan Bourne in Oklahoma coming out 3 weeks before the vote saying, over my dead body they'll get the vote. That's a Democrat for you. Altmire couldn't make up his mind. It took him 85 days from Christmas Eve until March 19th, where he finally decided that he could vote for it after Nancy had coalesced sufficient votes to get the bill through. And I think when you see us discussing this issue right now, where I am full square for repeal of the Obamacare bill, and Altmire's not, he says it's not an option to repeal it. Well, it's a congressman's job to make it an option, to stand up and fight for the people of this district. The people of this district want that bill repealed, and I'm going to fight hard and provide the leadership we need to come up with common sense reforms that the American people support, that the people of this district support, that actually address the health care crisis we have.
So you think even though Jason Altmire votes against Obamacare, he's definitely still vulnerable?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is an issue that we really started to hit on in the last couple of weeks. We just put up an ad where we have him on video saying that repeal is not a, quote, viable option. And we talk about my own experience with everybody has a personal health care experience. Mine is cancer. I understand that we have to have quality health care. You do not get quality health care with a government-run system, and that's exactly where we're heading. You look at the people that Obama's putting in. Dr. Berwick at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. You know, the guy has said favorable things about rationing. You know, we have to find a way to provide the care for our seniors. You do not pull the rug out on a program such as Medicare and cut $500 billion from it to start to fund a new entitlement program. There are people who have been giving into this program for years, and there was an expectation that this would be there for them. So we have to make sure that we're making vehicles available to take care of the people who need the care.
And you turned 18 in 1980. Who are your political heroes?
Well, it's got to be Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, and to an extent John Paul II. You know, you look at what the work he did. I have a solidarity banner in our office, Solidarność, remembering full well what the ship workers at Gdansk were going through when you had an overpowering central authority in Warsaw ordering the economic life of a nation. And Lech Walesa and the brave individuals in the Solidarity Union who stood up to the omnipotent government, and the call that John Paul had about really people understanding and wanting to be free, free to worship and free to order their lives. Ronald Reagan, out of the midst of the chaos of the late 1970s with the misery index, understanding that government is the problem and not the solution. Margaret Thatcher taking the sick man of Europe and making Britain great again because of limited government, low taxes, getting the government out of running businesses. These certainly are the individuals that inspired me in the late 1970s and early 1980s.
Great. Well, best of luck, Keith. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Rob.